Chapters 11 and 12 function as a kind of transition between the book of signs and the book of glory. Now, of course, chapter 11 contains Jesus' greatest sign before his own resurrection, the raising of Lazarus, and this event simultaneously seals Jesus' fate and paves his way to the cross and his eventual glorification. Now, we know from the synoptics that Jesus raised plenty of people from the dead. Jairus' daughter, the widow's son. What's so special about the raising of Lazarus that he's given such prominent place here in the very center of the Gospel of John? Well, it was, of course, the occasion of one of Jesus' most powerful I am statements. He says to the grieving sister Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet he shall live. Jesus, because he is the resurrection and the life, is the guarantee of our own resurrection and enables us to sing that old gospel song, there ain't no grave that's going to hold this body down. And if he walked out of the grave, well, I'm walking too. I love that line. But more than that, chapter 11 is placed in between the Good Shepherd section in chapter 10 and the Farewell Discourse section in 13 to 16 as a foretaste of Jesus laying down his life for his friend. Let me show you how this works. John is very clear that after this combative festival cycle, for him to go back to Jerusalem would be suicide. Get a load of this in chapter 11. Jesus' little mini conversation with his disciples, starting in verse 7. Jesus says, hey, let's go back to Judea again. Lazarus is ill, and he's on his deathbed. And his disciples say, Rabbi, I don't know if this is a good idea. The Jews were just now trying to stone you. Don't you remember how chapter 8 ended? How chapter 10 ended? They're trying to kill you. Are you going to go back there again? And Jesus says, well, yes, I am. And Thomas, doubting Thomas, look what the cowardly doubting Thomas says. He says, all right, let us go with him that we may die alongside our master. And then just as proof that Jesus returning to Jerusalem in order to raise Lazarus was the event that sparked Jesus' own death. It was the domino that knocked all of the rest of them down. Look at verse 47. After Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, Lazarus, come out! The Pharisees get together with the chief priests and they gather a council and say, man, what are we to do? And they agree at this council. They give orders that if anyone sees Jesus, let us know because we're going to arrest him and we're going to make good on our failed attempts to kill him from earlier. Therefore, Jesus returning to Bethany in order to raise Lazarus is very literally Jesus laying down his life for his friend. And this command Jesus is going to give in chapter 15 in his farewell discourse. Greater love has no one than this, than that he lay down his life for his friend. And it's very important that we have this word friend because Lazarus in chapter 11, verse 11 is called Jesus' friend. I mean, if Jesus laid down his life for Lazarus, he will do the same for you. Moving on to chapter 12. And we have in this chapter another countdown of 7 days. Just like in chapter 1, John began his book with a 7-day creation of a restored new covenant Israel through his disciples. And John is going to end his gospel, the last 7 days leading up to Jesus' cross, his death, and the birth of a new creation life following that. Let's look at these 7 days following the resurrection of Lazarus. Here we go. So the first week, recorded here on the left, is in chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And the last week of Jesus' life before his resurrection is beginning in the very first verse of chapter 12, where it says, 6 days before the Passover, that's the day Jesus died, Jesus went to Bethany. Now let's count those 6 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And here we have a Friday, which is Passover, the day when Jesus hung on the cross. Now, before Jesus is going to hang on the cross, he's going to leave Mary and Martha's house to ride triumphantly into Jerusalem. And when in Jerusalem, he has a important but rather confusing exchange with some Greeks who are in the temple. Let's take a look at that in chapter 12. So here we have Jesus is anointed as king. There's a plot to kill Lazarus. Jesus enters into the city of Jerusalem, and then there's some Greeks. This section's only recorded in John, by the way. And these Greeks go up to Philip, and they say, "Hey, we want to see Jesus." And he gathers Andrew, and they go to Jesus. And Jesus responds with this non sequitur. It seems like it's completely out of the blue. Jesus says, seeing those Greeks, "The hour has come now for the Son of Man to be glorified." Now, throughout the entire book of John, to this point, we've been consistently reminded that my hour has not yet come. They try to arrest Jesus, they try to stone him, but they couldn't because his hour had not yet come. But now, here in chapter 12, all of that changes. Jesus' hour has arrived. Chapter 2, my hour has not yet come. My time has not yet come. The hour has not yet come, though they were seeking to arrest him. But in 12:23, the hour has come for what? For the Son of Man to be glorified. And this, of course, is where we get this idea of the book of glory. That's the title of the second half of the book of John. Look at chapter 13. The hour has come for Jesus to depart out of this world and go back to the Father after his ascension. Chapter 17, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, Jesus prays in his highly priestly prayer, that the Son may glorify you. These references to Jesus's glorification being the combination of Jesus's death, resurrection, and ascension, all brought together into a single event, which John calls Jesus's glorification. Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son. Glorify me now in your own presence with the glory I had with you before the world existed. Astonishing. Now, Jesus, he sees in this reception by the Greeks in Jerusalem, he sees in this event that he has been rejected by Israel, and therefore that his own death and his glorification is imminent. It's right around the corner. Well, John is going to capture this rejection by Israel in a kind of summary statement of sorts at the end of chapter 12. It's a pretty important summary statement that summarizes all of Jesus' ministry to this point. This is John chapter 12, verse 37. When Jesus said these things, he departed, he left the temple, hid himself, for though he had done so many signs. Remember what John says? These signs are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and believing have life in his name. It didn't work, evidently, for that generation of Israel. Though he had done so many signs, they did not believe him, so that the word spoken by the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. What did Isaiah say? Isaiah said, Lord, who has believed what he heard from us? To whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Therefore, they could not believe, for Isaiah said, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their heart. Now, what two chapters of Isaiah, quiz question, what two chapters of Isaiah is John quoting here? This is Isaiah 53. Is that an important chapter? Yes, it is. And Isaiah chapter 6. Now, catch this. Look what John says right after this. Isaiah said these things because he, Isaiah, saw his glory and spoke of him. Who was Isaiah talking about? Whose glory did Isaiah see? Jesus. Isaiah saw Jesus high and lifted up on the throne. Isn't that amazing? So when Isaiah has his vision, his call narrative in chapter 6, the one that he sees on the throne is Jesus himself. And we know this is true because he links these two chapters together. Let's take a look at this. Isaiah 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on his throne high and lifted up, there's only two individuals in the entire Bible who are described as being high and lifted up. One of them is the person whose the train of his robe is filling the temple and the seraphim surround him singing, "Holy, holy, holy." That's one of the individuals who's high and lifted up. The other person who's high and lifted up is the servant. My servant, who will be pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. That servant is high and lifted up and exalted. And it is about this servant and his suffering death that Isaiah asks, and John, quoting Isaiah, asks, "Who has believed what he heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?" Evidently, the arm of the Lord has been revealed to a few Greeks, just a couple of Greeks there in Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. And the arm of the Lord has been revealed to the remnant of Israel in Jesus' own disciples, who will get yet further lessons in what it means for Jesus to be Isaiah's suffering servant in the farewell discourse in 13 to 16, which we will take a look at next.